and gentlemen, you're watching India Tonight, and on to our top story this hour. Well, Israel and Hamas have agreed to a ceasefire deal. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's office has said that Hamas is creating a last-minute crisis in the completion of ceasefire deal to pause the war in Gaza. Now, Israel and Hamas have agreed to a ceasefire, like I said, and that will come into effect on Sunday. US President Joe Biden also confirmed the deal involving a full and complete ceasefire that will involve the withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza and, of course, the release of all the hostages that have been held by Hamas. Earlier, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that there were still several unresolved clauses which he hoped would be finalized. Now, Palestinians in Gaza and Israeli hostages' families, they celebrated the news. However, hours after the announcement, Israeli airstrikes in Gaza reportedly killed 20 people. So what do we know about the ceasefire deal so far? Well, that the ceasefire will take place in 3 phases. In the first phase, Israel will cease fire in Gaza for 42 days. During that time, Hamas will release 33 hostages, and then that includes all remaining female hostages and men over the age of 50. Now, if phase 1 conditions are met, Hamas will release all remaining living captives that are mostly male soldiers in return for the freeing of more Palestinians held in Israeli prisons. Phase 3 is likely to have a 3-year construction plan. Remember, phase 2 will take place after Donald Trump assumes office. So there are lots of combinations that are involved. It's lots of moving pieces in this deal as well, given that it is split between 2 administrations, 2 U.S. administrations, the Biden administration and the Trump administration. So the big question that we are asking on the show tonight, can the deal lead to lasting peace? And to discuss several aspects of this deal, I'm now joined by Lev Aaron, who's a former coordinator of Israel-India Parliamentary Friendship League. He's also an Israeli author and a journalist. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, Mr. Aaron, on ET Now. Now, that deal has been on the table since May, and of course, after 15 months of the war, a ceasefire indeed has been reached upon. It's been in the works, like I said, for quite some time now. But what really happens next in terms of implementation?
So we cannot know what will be the impact on the Middle East, on the Abraham Accords, on the IMEC from Mumbai to Haifa, and from there to Europe. This we will know in the future. But we do understand why a deal, which is quite identical to the deal that Biden was offering for more than a year, why now both sides signed the deal, but they could not sign it for like 1 year, even 1 year plus. And the reason here, I think like 2 reasons. One reason is that the big demerit of Trump is that he is narcissistic and unpredictable. But in this case, it was a merit because he promised hell to the Palestinians, and they knew that hell means that he will give a green light to Israel to do whatever Israel wants in Gaza, and nobody will care. If America doesn't care, nobody will care. And Netanyahu knows that he wants to be in the good books of Trump. And also that Trump is hugely popular among the right-wing Israelis, including the right-wing fringe in Israel who are in Netanyahu's government. So we do understand why an identical deal now was signed, but could not be signed for over a year.
Absolutely, and that really is the big question, and which is something that Donald Trump is likely to take credit for. In fact, he has. Just a couple of days back, he also mentioned that all hell will break loose. So there is that unitive going on between Biden and, of course, Donald Trump as well. And we'll come to that point in just a bit. But let's understand the various aspects of the deal. Now, Lev, surely the ceasefire is a welcome relief, but is there a guarantee that this deal becomes permanent? Because the ceasefire does not really mean the end of conflict. Looking at the fact that Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu has said that there are still several unresolved clauses. So there is that environment perhaps of mistrust. What are the big concerns that you see?
For Netanyahu, it was very easy, and also for Sinwar, to cross the red lines of Biden and of the American administration. So the big question is, do Americans want do they want a ceasefire, a permanent ceasefire? If Trump tells Netanyahu, I want a permanent ceasefire. So even after all the hostages are back, you cannot go back to the war. Even if the right-wing fringe demands a war in Gaza, you cannot do it because I do not want a war in Gaza. If it will be like crystal clear from Trump's side that he wants a ceasefire, Netanyahu will be obedient. He will have no other choice. This is what I think. And also, as far as Hamas is concerned, I think, Gaza looks now, it is, some cities you cannot even recognize inside Gaza.
Okay.
And Hamas knows that
Yes.
once they are
Yes.
out of the tunnels, of course, some people will blame Israel, but also, excuse me, you wanted to ask?
Yes. And of course, the reconstruction, I'm saying yes. So the reconstruction of Gaza is another point that we'll touch upon during the course of the discussion. But I want to understand, if you could once again speak about the key concerns that you have, not really from an America point of view, but from an Israel point of view. And secondly, does the deal really provide for Israel's key aim that it's been looking for, which is to destroy Hamas?
No. So the big answer is no. No, of course not. Because Netanyahu promised a total victory, a full victory. And this deal is identical to the deal that, more or less identical to the deal that Biden was offering for many months. So the answer is no, but I think we can be optimistic about the ceasefire, not only for these, let's say, 45 days, 42 days, 3 months, etc. I think we can be optimistic because it seems like Trump doesn't want a new war, and Netanyahu wants to be in the good books of Trump.
Yes.
So we cannot separate right now the will of Trump and the will of the domestic government in Gaza and in Israel, because right now Trump is the key player, not Israel and not Hamas in Gaza.
Okay, okay. So left from an Israel point of view, what are the key concerns that you see as far as the completion of this deal is concerned? Of course, there are 3 phases that this deal, the ceasefire agreement, is divided upon. But what really are the key concerns that you see? If you could enumerate 3 of them.
Yes. So I think one issue is that we saw that Hamas was successful in invading Israel, killing, murdering, raping, and so on. And it took Israel 48 hours even to give a fight back to Hamas. So after the agreement, more troops will be on the Gaza border to make sure that we will not see a second 7th of October. So this is like one thing. The second headache of Israel is who will replace Hamas. Because on one hand, Netanyahu's government doesn't want to see Hamas back to power. This will look like a defeat. And all pollsters say that if Hamas will rule Gaza after the war, Netanyahu will lose the next elections. On the other hand, the other option, the Palestinian Authority and its capital in Ramallah in the West Bank, is also a very bad option for Netanyahu, because it means that we go back to the table to speak about the Palestinian state. And right now, Netanyahu's base in Israel, they are very anti-Palestinians. So this is like a second concern. And the third concern is that there was a huge hope that Trump will be pro-Israeli, fully pro-Israeli. And also he sent a pro-settlement ambassador to Jerusalem. So he gave all the signs to Israel that now you will have the president that you always dreamt about. And now Netanyahu sees that Trump can be bipartisan, and Trump can also force him to sign a deal that Netanyahu does not want to sign. So these are like the 3 concerns in Israel right now.
Right. Right. And, very interesting that you point out, Lev, all of those concerns. And of course, the big one being that Hamas could rule Gaza if these terrorist organizations are not really eliminated, which is what Israel has been maintaining ever since that attack happened on Israeli citizens. But talking about Israel, there's a whole lot of complicated politics at play in the country because the country's far-right ministers have shown disapproval for this plan. They're calling on other ministers to quit Benjamin Netanyahu's government. They've called the deal bad and dangerous on Israel's national security. Now, is that going to threaten Netanyahu's government as well, or is that just a whole lot of bluster coming in from these leaders?
So about 1 hour ago, maybe less, the biggest faction in the government who was against the deal, they complied with the deal. They said that they will not leave the government even after they see all the prisoners, the Palestinian prisoners, go back to Gaza and to the West Bank. So in a way, Netanyahu, about 1 hour ago, he saved his government, at least for a few weeks ahead. But in the long run, of course, it looks like a total defeat among the right-wing MKs, members of the Knesset in Israel. And Netanyahu will face a domestic opposition, internal opposition within his coalition. So he's now facing a hostile right-wing, situation. And Netanyahu, he's a very seasoned politician. He's the longest prime minister we ever had. But even for Netanyahu, it will be a nightmarish, task to keep all the flock together in his government.
Absolutely. And that has been there for quite some time now because, some of these far-right leaders say that the deal is not favoring Israel because Israel had vowed to destroy Hamas completely. And they say that this is one-sided. Of course, the pressure continues on Benjamin Netanyahu. But Lev, one final question before we let you go. The question really now is who's going to administer Gaza? That was one point that you made. Do you assume this is going to be a multinational force, or how will that turn out to be?
In a way, we have no other choice because Hamas maybe officially can still run Gaza, but it doesn't have the toolkit. And also many, lakhs of Palestinians in Gaza are very angry about Hamas. If we go to the Palestinian Authority, maybe they have the political will, but they are a venal and corrupt entity. And we saw that, from every rupee that goes to them, maybe 60 paisa go to pockets of big wigs in the Palestinian Authority. So again, banking on the Palestinian Authority is also not something that anybody wants to see. So I guess that the official stance of the international community will be that the Palestinian Authority will go back to Gaza, but with a lot of help from Gulf countries, maybe Qatar, maybe also other countries, maybe the US administration will also donate a lot of money for this, Herculean task. But this we will need to see only after the deal is successful. We will be able to see what are the next steps to make Gaza a normal, blooming place for the Palestinians that live there.
Absolutely, and that really remains the most pertinent question. Then there is that question of Palestine as well. And on that note, thank you very much, Lev, for joining us and sharing your perspectives and your thoughts on what's next after the ceasefire deal really comes into effect. Thank you very much once again for joining us here on ET. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we'll have to wait and see how this deal really shapes up over the next couple of weeks and if normalcy in the region indeed returns. Like I said, there are multiple moving pieces. Of course, negotiators will have to keep a close watch on every step of the deal and those steps indeed if they end up in materializing. On that note, it's time for us to slip into a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.